Good morning and welcome to another session with Aduro Learning. We're teachers helping teachers, and today we're chatting about strategies to help students stay on task in a connected classroom. This is part of our micro-credentials that talk all about how we can really utilize all that technology that we have in our classrooms. And of course, along with having all the technology and all those devices in our classrooms today, come a few issues. So today we're going to talk about some of those issues. I love being in a connected classroom. I love having kids having access to many devices and being able to do a raft of things with these devices. But of course, I know that a lot of teachers experience some issues helping their students stay on task when all of these devices are in the classroom. So I've got a few of my own strategies and some strategies that I've seen other colleagues over the years use, and I have one or two that hopefully I'll share with you that people have let me know via Twitter. So if you have a strategy that really works in your classroom, and even if you're watching the recorded version a bit later, please share them in the comments below. As usual, I have a sketch note which I will share with you after the Facebook Live has finished. I'm going to use it so that I don't forget what I want to share with you today. So my first number one tip is when I was writing down all the things that I used to do to help my students stay on task, when I wrote this one down, I thought, duh, this one is so obvious, but sometimes even I will forget about this one. And this one is that you've already got a huge wealth of awesome classroom management strategies in your toolkit already that work perfectly with students using devices as well. So if we just sort of take the devices out of the equation and think about the devices being any kind of tool, whether it be a pencil, a microscope, a robot, anything, those strategies that you use in your everyday classroom, they work just as well. And those strategies that I'm talking about are clear expectations. Expectations like when you come into class, you're going to be ready to learn. And so by ready to learn with a device means that the device is fully charged. And that is a clear expectation for the class, because there's nothing that puts everything out of whack is a whole lot of devices going flat and students not being able to use them. Another one is when you want to give an instruction, or there's something really, really important that you want your students to know, that it's eyes on me. That's an expectation that you have regardless of whether you're using devices, if the kids are using microscopes, if they're using magnifying glasses, if they're using the little move-about robots. When you want to give an instruction, you say, all eyes on me, and you don't give those instructions until you have all eyes on you. So it's the same with the devices. Another little tip that you can do to get their attention is to say lids at 45, and that means that all the lids are lowered, they don't turn off, so if work isn't saved, it's not going to go away. The lids are at 45 and there's less chance of a bit of a distraction, and they'll stay on task by looking at you because you're about to deliver something really important. And the other really big simple thing that I used to forget, and I had to remind myself that yes, this one really works, and that's the old circulation. Like, be moving around the classroom, knowing what is going on goes a long way to helping kids stay on task. They know that you're roaming, they know that you're watching, they know that you're interested in what they are doing, and so they're more likely to be staying on task. So just those four things are things that you as a teacher are already doing in a classroom that may or may not have devices. So use those awesome basic classroom management strategies that you already have and know and love, because they work just as well with the devices. The device is just a tool. One of the other things that really worked for me for helping kids stay on task in a connected classroom was having textbooks. And what I used to do is every time I had a new tool or we did something different, like we were adding images to our blog, I used to train 1 or 2 students who agreed to do this for me and teach them how to do this really well, and they became our textbot. And I had a big chart on the wall, and so everyone in the classroom knew that if I was having trouble doing this, then I could go and see that person. And that kind of led to the C3 before me, which meant that I was still able to use all my teaching management skills to keep everyone on task. And I had others taking care of those little issues that can sometimes derail the learning for others. Yes, Emily, C3 before me. Yes, that works every single time. It means that I take the stress away from me being the one for having to answer everyone's question or everyone's issue. It meant that there were others. Thanks, Kim, for letting Robin know. Yes, tech experts, and we just say textbooks. I have to share with you that that is probably my number one strategy in a connected classroom that really saved my bacon on a number of occasions and significantly lowered my stress level. I have a blog post. It's an old blog post, but I think I'll revamp it and republish it, and I'll put that link in the comment later. Another strategy that works very, very well in a classroom that has many devices and helps keep students on task is something that a friend of mine reminded me on Twitter to share today. Thanks, Cheryl Terry. She shared offer student choice. And so that made me think about, well, what does that actually mean? And it may not mean that you hand over the learning to your students and go, learning's yours, go for it. Now you're not going to be distracted. Now you're going to stay on task. It's not quite that. I was thinking about things like offering a range of tools. Being able to choose how I demonstrate my learning can significantly motivate me on staying on task and getting that task done. So that's one way that you can offer student choice in your classroom, is allow students choice in choosing how they share the learning or how they demonstrate their learning back to everyone and back to the teacher. So range of tools. The other one that kind of led quite on to offering student choice was having engaging tasks in the first place. And by having engaging tasks for students to complete means really thinking very deeply about what it is that you want kids to learn and what it is that you want the students in your class to demonstrate. And so in order to have engaging tasks, you really need to think about the purpose. You can use things like real world problems to help kids be interested in learning. I groaned the other day when my son shared what his homework was, and it was something that he wasn't very motivated to be doing. And I was thinking, like, what relevance does that have to you? No wonder you're a little bit bored. And I couldn't even, in my teacher capacity, come up with a reason why doing this particular task might be necessary. So I just had to kind of zip my lips on that one, because there is obviously a reason why he needs to do that task, but I couldn't quite think about the reason why it would engage or motivate a student. So as a teacher in a connected classroom, we have access to a wealth of tools. The internet just opens wide up if you have those opportunities in your classroom. And so we really need to think differently about the lessons that we are organising and the units that we're having in our classroom. And that kind of leads into when we're thinking about engaging tasks that have a real purpose, are motivating, are interesting for kids. we need to think about moving towards the R, or redefinition, in the SAMR model. And we have a lot of resources and some blog posts about SAMR, so we will post the link to our blog in the comments below, and you can find some of those things that talk a little bit more about SAMR or TPAC or whatever kind of planning cycle that you have in your school or district. Another little tip that used to help keep my students, or used to help me to help my students stay on task, was having a platform. And by having a platform, I mean I had a classroom blog, and that was kind of my go-to hub, so to speak. And so that platform had extra things on it, like instructions, it had guides and helps, it was a place that students could go to for extra resources. It was somewhere that they knew that they could go to get a little bit of help or a little bit of clarification. I also used that blog for parents as well for the same reason. It was a place for them to go to where they could get some instruction about what was going on in the classroom, where there was a little bit more guidance or a little bit more information about what was going on in the classroom, and some resources to help them as well. So that strategy really did help a lot in keeping students on task, because if they didn't know what to do next, let's say they finished their work, then that was kind of the place that they knew they went to. And if I kind of noticed out the corner of my eye that someone was kind of finished their task and not really moving on to the next one, instead of going over to them and checking in physically, I could just call across the room and say, have you been to the class blog and checked out your next step? And so, yes, Kim, that's that central space where everyone knows where they go is a major saver and organiser, and helps keep everyone on task. Another thing that you might consider, especially if you have older students, where being distracted and not staying on task is complicated by all those teenage hormones and issues about being disconnected, consider having what I would call tech breaks. Now, I've seen both sides of the coin go on here. I've seen in a class where a teacher has embraced what it is that teenagers need to do with social media, that need to be constantly checking in. And what they did was they have made the expectation that on the hour, students had 3 minutes to check social media. It was carte blanche. You checked what you needed to check, and then after the 3 minutes were up, the timer went off, and it was phones away or laptop lids down, ready for getting back to work. And that worked really well in her classroom. And then I've seen the other side of it, where a teacher has had the expectation that you're here in my class for X amount of time. That's learning time. You can check your social media on the way out the door. So both of those work. Yes, Susie. Nice to see you, Susie. Hope you're doing well. Yes, tech breaks. So depending on how comfortable you feel about that and sort of what age your students are, that could be something that you're prepared to negotiate. And the 3 minutes was a perfect amount of time. I know that some teachers who have their students for longer would make the time in between longer and make the tech break 5 minutes. It's entirely up to you and your environment and what you feel is a good arrangement for you and for your students in your class. So those are my main strategies for helping keep students on task in a connected classroom. If you're joining us today and you are watching the recorded video, then if you've got your number one tips or tips that really work for you, then please post them in the comment. We love to share. As I said at the beginning, we're teachers helping teachers, and so that idea of what works in your classroom may work in my classroom, and I'll give it a go. So please, if you have a strategy, share it in the comments below. If you like this and you would like more, please check out our blog. www.edurolearning.com. We have a wealth of resources, including today's freebie, which is a nifty little PDF that you can give your email for. Yes, even if you've given us your email before, you do need to give us your email again. I promise we won't spam you. It's just to help us keep a record of what is popular and what's not. So we keep making more of what people want and less of what you don't want. So check us out at edurolearning.com. And if you happen to have some spare time, we've got a 21-day challenge going on at the moment, the Eduro Challenge. Today's topic is fail, first attempt in learning. Some of you might know that I am learning to latte art, and I've had a number of failures, and now I'm starting to have a few successes, so I'm glad I didn't give up. So if that interests you, it's all about taking a photo to do with that theme and then tagging us. Go check that out. Eduro Challenge, the 21-day challenge. Thanks for joining us today, and I'll pop those links in the comments below. Have a wonderful day. Happy first day of spring from the Southern Hemisphere. Yes!